All I Want for Christmas, Mariah Carey's Yuletide classic, has become a ubiquitous presence every festive season and one of the most beloved Christmas songs ever. Since its release in '94, the song has grown into an annual festive juggernaut. But did you know that it wasn't Mariah's idea to make a Christmas record in the first place, and that initially Mimi wasn't too keen on the idea at all? And how did Mariah's festive music change the industry's attitudes to Christmas albums in the years that followed? Why has Mariah been estranged from the co-writer of the song, Walter Afanasieff, for the last 20 years? Why does Walter say he didn't like the song at first? And how much money has Mariah earned in royalties from the festive classic? So many questions, let's find out. So as most of you already know, Mariah was married to the head of Sony Music, Tommy Mottola, way back in the 90s. And it was Tommy who first suggested the idea of doing a Christmas album. He talks about how Mariah reacted to the idea in his autobiography, Hitmaker, The Man and His Music. A little while after the success of Music Box, I said to Mariah, wouldn't it be a great idea for you to do a Christmas album? Everybody at Sony was on board and gung-ho. There was only one person who resisted it, Mariah. She resisted it, probably thinking that a Christmas album would be very, very uncool to her hip-hop fans. We went back and forth. Finally, she began to open up to the idea, and once she started, she dove into it with Walter A, writing some new songs and also covering the classics. The album cover was to be a sleigh and live reindeer with Mariah in a very sexy suit. That was her idea and very cool, and the entire Sony team was overwhelmed with enthusiasm when the album cover photo came in. But when Mariah looked at the same photo, she turned to me and said, "What are you trying to do? Turn me into Connie Francis." And Mariah, in a number of interviews over the years, has corroborated this version of events. But whilst it may have been Tommy's idea to do the Christmas album, it was undeniably Mariah's songwriting genius and her magical musical chemistry with collaborator Walter Afanasieff, which created the timeless classic we all know and love today. And in '94 it was considered a highly unusual move to make a Christmas album so early in a career and whilst riding high commercially. Mimi was just 3 studio albums in at the time and was anything but in decline after the enormous success of Music Box, which sold over 30 million copies. In '94 it tended to be artists whose sales and influence were dwindling that released Christmas albums. With the exception of Boyz II Men, who released a Christmas album as their second studio album in '93. But in the years after Mariah's Christmas success, the shift in attitude towards festive records was undeniable. Celine Dion and NSYNC both released Christmas albums in '98, and Destiny's Child and Christina Aguilera in the early noughties, all at the time coming off the back of huge albums. But of course Mariah didn't pull off the huge success of All I Want for Christmas all by herself. As mentioned earlier, the song was written and produced with her main musical collaborator from the 90s, Walter Afanasieff. I think I said that right. The duo, arguably Mariah's most successful writing partnership of that decade, turned out huge hits including Hero, My All and One Sweet Day. But the two haven't worked together since the Butterfly album in '97, and unfortunately in the years since have become estranged. Walter had this to say about the matter in an interview with Britain's Radio Times from 2018. "We had a falling out. I would have hoped that in 20 years she would have knocked on my door, but she hasn't. The reason we stopped working together was primarily because she and her husband, who was the chairman of Sony Music, got a divorce, and I was under an exclusive contract with him. She wasn't even on the label anymore, but I couldn't go and work with her because he wouldn't let me. So she found that to be a little bit of a slap in the face." Singers like Mariah, Celine, Whitney, Barbara, they're all very insecure creatures. They're very jealous people. So I was working to put food on my table. I can't only work with Mariah, and I think that was a bit of a problem because I was working at that time with Celine. So I don't know, we just parted ways. I love Mariah Carey. She's the greatest thing that ever happened to me. Unfortunately, it doesn't go both ways. I'm not sure if I believe the whole theory about being jealous about working with other female singers, because virtually all of Mariah's collaborators have worked with other major female artists. But perhaps Mariah felt differently about Walter, as he'd really made his name working with her and was best known for their collaborative partnership. Walter had his first producing job on Love Takes Time from Mariah's first album, and the two had worked together on every one of Mimi's studio albums up until and including Butterfly in '97. In an interview with Variety from 2019, Walter spoke about why he has mixed feelings about the song's continued success. It's almost bittersweet for me because of the fact that I'm constantly, at the same time, every single year, having to defend myself, because a lot of people don't believe I'm a co-writer of the song. Mariah has been very wonderful, positive, and a force of nature. She's the one that made the song a hit, but she definitely does not share credit where credit is due. As a result, it has really hurt my reputation, because it is such a wonderful event for me, yet my life is being threatened on the internet because Mariah fans are accusing me of stealing from her. In her 2020 autobiography, The Meaning of Mariah Carey, Mimi doesn't really address the breakdown of their working relationship. But in an interview on the Questlove Supreme podcast from 2021, when asked about her former collaborator, Mariah had this to say: "Walter was a great writing partner. There were some incestuous situations where, let's just call it the record company and the publishing situations, where I don't want to get into specifics. What I am saying is that certain people in my life had that other connection. For the most part, when I'm coming up with melodies and I'm singing to somebody like, hey, can you play this? I just know how to hear it. Until somebody gets it, until I'm hearing it from there. I will say he and I had a really good flow with putting things together, so it's no shade towards him. I wish him well." In Mark Shapiro's biography of Mimi from 2001, he writes that the partnership broke down around the time of recording the Rainbow album in '99. Mariah at the time contacted Walter to work on the record, but he was booked with other artists. According to Shapiro, Mariah was suspicious that Sony had been meddling in her working relationship with Walter and had played a part in him not being available, as a form of revenge for her divorce from the head of Sony Music, Tommy Mottola. But whilst Walter might be disappointed that Mariah hasn't called, he does at least have a whole lot of royalty checks to help him lick his wounds. An Economist article from 2016 says that the songs have earned Mariah approximately $2.5 million every year since '94, and by 2016 she had earned an estimated $60 million from the track. And at the time of making this video, 6 years have passed since the article was written. So based on the Economist's calculations, Mariah has earned another $15 million in that time. In the interview with the Radio Times, Walter A says they both have equal shares in the song. So based on that reasoning, Walter must have earned a similar figure. A pretty great payday from a song said to have been written in 15 minutes. And Walter has said in an interview with ASCAP from 2019 that at first he didn't like the song as he thought the melody was overly simple, but he now admits that that simple melody was one of the key factors in the song's success. While sadly Mariah and Walter's writing partnership hasn't endured, the song's popularity certainly has. It's as if with every passing year, it's become more and more popular. One of the key milestones in the song's history occurred in '04, when the classic Christmas movie Love Actually was released, and featured the song in a key scene, and in turn helping it be heard by younger audiences at the time. And in 2012, America's Billboard charts changed their rules to allow older songs, or recurrent songs as they like to call them, to appear on the main chart as long as they'd accrued enough points from sales and airplay. Up until that point, All I Want for Christmas had been shut out from the main Billboard chart. Upon its debut in '94, the song wasn't released as a physical single in the US, and only made it to number 12 on the Billboard radio song charts. Aided by the launch of Apple's iTunes store in the early noughties, the song regularly reached number 1 on that chart, but still failed to appear on the Billboard Hot 100 as they didn't allow old songs or holiday songs to count towards the main chart. And with the emergence of streaming services such as Spotify in the early noughties, Billboard changed their chart methodology for the Hot 100 in 2012 to include streaming figures into the final tally. The effect was immediate, with the song becoming a top 40 hit for the first time ever in 2012, when it reached number 29. And in 2017, the song broke into the top 10 for the first time ever. And in 2019, on its 25th anniversary, the song ascended to the top spot, becoming the first Christmas song to get to number 1 in America since the Chipmunks way back in 1958. And it took the pole position again in 2020, 2021 and 2022. In 2021, the song was certified diamond for sales of over 10 million in the States, which was Mimi's first single to reach the diamond status. And it is the 11th biggest selling physical single of all time worldwide. Billboard placed the track at number 1 on their list of the greatest holiday songs of all time. And the song reached number 1 in the UK in 2020 and 2022. Mariah has also built up a nice Yuletide business around the song. She has written a book entitled All I Want for Christmas and a movie of the same name, which of course is based on the song. Not to mention all the Christmas themed TV specials, commercial deals and merchandise. The song, loved by millions all over the world, helps define every festive season and is a mainstay of every Christmas soundtrack. And for Mimi, it hasn't just contributed to her spectacular wealth, it's also helped to further solidify her legacy as one of the greatest singer-songwriters of all time. Thanks for watching. If you have any thoughts on anything in this video, please leave them in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe and check out my other videos.